I bought the world's cheapest Gibson, but is it any good? Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. For your entertainment pleasure, I purchased the 3-string LOOG Les Paul. If you're not familiar with this company, they first came out about 5-6 years ago with this whole idea of children's electric and acoustic guitars. They've since built onto ukuleles as well as pianos. But their specialty is the 3-string guitar, which they then pair with an app and flashcards to make it kid-friendly to learn the top 3 strings and get them excited about music at a young age. So whether these things are good or not, that's a plus in my book, and since their introduction, they've partnered with Fender to create Strats and Tellys in their style, as well as Beatles-influenced instruments, and I was really shocked to see Gibson join the party as well. Well, let's go ahead and get my first impressions. The box itself is rather flimsy, but this isn't really meant to ship in, it's more so just to sit in a retail location. It's plenty adequate for that. But it looks like we can slip this cover off to get it out and see what we're working with here. Ooh, that's nice and shiny. Now, if you bought one of these thinking, oh yeah, TV yellow, that's the official color, this looks exactly like Gibson Custom Shop TV yellow. No, I mean, there's no wood grain showing, but it is a nice yellow color. And check that out, this is very bizarre. It appears to be some sort of a maple neck, but I have not tried a 3-string LOOG before. But I found the branding on this rather interesting. LOOG Gibson by LOOG. So technically it does say Gibson on the headstock, so the title is not clickbait. This is the cheapest brand new Gibson that I know of. But this thing is a lot of fun so far. It's a bolt-on neck, it's got that Gibson by LOOG branding again. Well, look at our little P90 there, only having 3 pull pieces and our miniature wraparound tailpiece. But if you're wondering if this would sit on a regular stand, yes, it actually does. I've never been a huge fan of the headstock shape on these things, but it's not as obnoxious in person, and that's mainly due to the sheer size of this thing. For size comparison to what it's emulating, I think this shows you just how much smaller it becomes in both length and width, I guess you could say. It's fun though. I mean, if your kid watches you play a Les Paul all the time, they would probably appreciate having their very own, and I think that's the target demographic for this kind of stuff. For a secondary size comparison, it actually does fit in a regular Les Paul case, which is absolutely hilarious to me. You just kind of have to shove it up here with the foam. That's a snug fit and really exemplifies just how much smaller it is. If you're familiar with the late 90s, early 2000s Epiphone Pee-wees and you're curious about a size comparison, here you go. The LOOG is actually a little bit larger. It's just the whole 6-string versus 3-string. Which, by the way, LOOG also makes the 6-string guitars. They did a sponsored unboxing with me about 5 years ago. And since I've had this for that long, I can honestly tell you, it's a nice little thing to give to your kids. But can you get a better guitar for 200-ish bucks? Definitely. But it's a good size for them, but you would definitely need somebody to do a setup because the action's always been really high on this thing. It's always just been about the chords for the most part. But if you're curious about durability of their finish and whatnot, this is the youngest kids you can imagine. They've been wailing away on this thing as a toy for 5 years. I would say it's held up okay, but when it comes to a bolt-on neck electric, there's other things to consider versus their set neck acoustics. But these are currently being offered in the original Les Pauls, the Les Paul Junior and the SG. The SG, you get the cardinal red, and the Juniors, you have 3 finishes. The TV yellow, and then a bright shell pink, as well as a frost blue. And all these options are currently $229 brand new. However, if you look at their marketing and activity book, you can see they're probably going to do an Explorer and a Flying V eventually, assuming that these first runs are successful. But I'm curious about the activity book. We can just quickly flip through it together here. Got some things about the Gibson Garage, a little maze. They're teaching you about some chords you can check out. They've got these stickers over here we were looking at. These are just like paper, not the highest quality in the world, but hey, it's good enough for the intended audience, I would assume. So it's a fun little freebie. Nothing too crazy. Oh man, they're starting them young. Headstock mix-up. Some of the signature artists get it wrong. In fact, Joe Bonamassa. This does exist, but it was a 90s limited edition. Dave Mustaine, Tak Matsumoto. Those guys need to study up. And otherwise, just an answer key. And I was curious if they would include these, as it should just be a little flashcard set, because they do have an app and they talk about how they have some games and whatnot, but I think they charge money for that. Yep, sure enough, I found their advertising pamphlet. They call it the Backstage Pass, so you can scan that, and assumingly they give you a discount code for your first year and then make you pay for it the rest. But back to what I was saying, it's nice to have a free option, because I don't know about you guys, but I just hate subscriptions for absolutely everything nowadays. But their cutesy theme is definitely for the younger audience. And then you also have some additional stickers over here that are much higher quality. They've got that glossiness to them. So if you can't decide which one to get the Les Paul, because then you can have the other three as stickers. And you can also have a hilariously large LOOG logo, if all that's not to your style. And then there was also this little Allen wrench. I was like, oh my goodness, does this have a little tiny truss rod? But now it's hitting me. This doesn't have a truss rod at all. Unless the adjustment's hiding underneath the neck, we'll have to find out on the workbench. But we also get some beginner picks over here. And then I'm kind of confused. Why do they include a string winder for if they're not giving you a spare set of strings? But hey, a freebie is a freebie. If you're in the market for something maybe a little bit higher end than this for your kid and you think they should have at least 4 strings, you might also consider a tenor guitar. They're not super popular or widely made today, but there's a few options out there that you could consider. But to learn more about this fun little thing, let's go ahead, throw it onto the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Let's go ahead and figure out all these detailed specs. So, you can remove the pickguard if you so wish to, and I want to let you know they do have a protective film on them right out of the box, so if you wanted to leave that on to protect the pickup and the guard from scratches, you can. However, full disclosure, it's already scratched up underneath there anyways when you have it off, so you might as well just remove it, let the kid have fun. Although I'd say the cover has significantly less scratches. But check out this little doofy pickup. That was my favorite thing about the Fender tenor Telecasters, was their funny little 4-pole piece pickup. But now we've got a dog ear P90 with only 3 of them there, but it's constructed just like a normal pickup. There's just fewer pole pieces. You've got your windings going around here that then get taped off, and then you can see your magnets underneath in order to create your tones. As far as your pickup cavity, it looks pretty nice and clean. And these are being advertised as poplar bodies, and you can see some of the wood grain right there. But it hides quite well because it's kind of a lightish yellow colored wood to begin with. So man, don't I feel silly now taking off the neck because I didn't notice that before. But right here on the edge, you can see the bare color of the poplar. It's just a very light colored wood. But I'm pleased to say the neck pocket's actually pretty tight, and a lot tighter than I was expecting. I mean, check this out. It locks into place. Now, you can't lift it up just on the tightness alone, but there's not a lot of wiggle there. But those covers then secure utilizing 2 screws to the top, and then you've got 5 for your pick guard. But I've got to say, I'm impressed. None of those screws were over-tightened from the factory. But if you're curious about the DC resistance of the pickup, remember, it's half as much pickup, so I would guess that's why it reads half as much here. Only 2.66k ohms. And this is just a master volume control. You do not have any tones on this particular one. Stock from the factory anyways. You could always modify it, put it there, and then route it out the side for your output jack. And then could you technically route it out for a full-size humbucker? It'd look really dumb, but technically, yes. If you wanted to make the modifications, you might be able to. Now let's check out our tailpiece / bridge combination. You can see it actually stands up quite a bit. The bushings within the body have a bit of a bump to them. I don't think that's going to be a particular issue on this guitar because ultra low action's already going to be pretty easy to get. But look at this thing, it's so cute. It's a lightning wraparound tailpiece, and that little Allen key we were looking at earlier is to help set the intonation. That's what these little screws do. It rocks it back and forth. Then the lightning portion is your intonation ridge that they've put on there. So keep in mind, these are the top 3 strings of an electric guitar. So that means G, B, and E. And I looked on the website, and it says that they're 11 gauges. So if you buy one of these and your string breaks and you want to replace it, ask the music shop for an 11 gauge set of strings and just use the top 3. But now let's grab our dimensions. I'd say it's about 9¼ inches on the lower bout, upper bout 6½. The full body length, 2¼ and then our thickness here is just a little bit under 1½ inches. My calipers measure it as 1.44 with the finish. But speaking of the finish, how's the quality of it? Is it good? Is it bad? If you're looking for a perfect mirror shine, nah, this isn't exactly it. I'm seeing quite a few surface level light scratches, like nothing super crazy, but just something to be aware of if you're interested in one of these. I don't think they're aiming for 100% perfection, and you can see some mild contaminations underneath the finish, like right there, as well as some of the wood grain poking through. The same thing's pretty much true for the back. However, I found one more noticeable blemish back here. You see those dings? That was kind of a shame straight out of the box. I can confirm that was not caused by me. My camera's going a little bit crazy, so it's harder to show you guys some of these scuffs that it came out with. If you think I'm being hard on a $200 children's guitar, I'm used to documenting much more expensive things than this. I like to give everything the full lowdown because managed expectations is what makes a purchase fun. When you know what to expect to get rather than being shocked by it. I mean, overall, I would say, 8.5. It's about what I was expecting. If you're curious just what the body and electronics weigh, 2 pounds, 6 ounces. But it is a fairly traditional Les Paul style shape. We don't have any comfort cuts or anything like that. Now let's look into our electronics. It's pretty basic in here, just a small pot and then an output jack. It's just a regular 2-conductor pickup, so nothing fancy as far as your wiring goes. However, I know somebody's going to want to modify this, so here's our depth. You got 1.34 inches to work with an internal width of about 0.93 inches. And if you need even more room than that, do you have any room to deepen it? You got 0.2 inches left of wood between the top and the very back of the route. Remember these flashcards I was talking about earlier? That's got the little monster there and tells you what fingers to use and in what locations. I did not see this in the stock photography, so I wanted to let you know, if you wanted a more professional looking version, the backside shows you the exact same thing in the standard notation that you'll see quite often. And it shows you it on a 6-string guitar, as well as the 3-string version. So you could continue to use these flashcards even when your kid does upgrade to the 6-string. Well, that's enough about our tiny little body. Let's move on to our neck. Full disclosure, I did go ahead and condition this. If you happen to buy one of these and you think the fretboard looks really dry, you can get yourself some of this. It's called Dunlop 65 Lemon Oil. It's not real lemon oil, because that's not good for a guitar, but it's lemon scented. It conditions it up real nice. I will say, these frets, straight out of the box, I was expecting worse. I mean, they were decently shiny. I did not do any additional polishing outside of just wiping them down after the conditioning treatment. I think my favorite thing about this particular fretboard is all the streakiness down here. You get some dark and light streaks. But as far as fret sprout, beautiful. I don't feel them at all. You can see they've tapered them off and rounded them just a tad, so you don't have to worry about cutting yourself on sharp metal. They still have the side marker inlays as well as the inlays on top to help you know which fret you're on. And it's actually spec'd out with a bone nut, measures 1.14 inches, and by the 12th it pretty much stays the exact same the whole way. It's kind of like a banjo neck in a roundabout way. That's a really good way to think about it. But our first fret neck depth is 0.86 and then 0.83 by the 12th. Here that is on the contour gauge. First and 12th fret stays pretty much the exact same. Calling it a D-shaped neck is pretty accurate because it comes straight down right here and then just lightly rolls over before you get to a pretty rounded back. It's not flat like you would typically think on a D shape because of the narrowness of the neck. So somewhere between a U and D shape is the best way to explain this thing. It's fun. So I was really curious if this would have a fretboard radius or not. Because at first glance, it might just look like all fretboards are flat, but they're not. They have a roundedness to them. For example, most Gibsons are 12-inch fretboard radiuses, but you can see how there's a gap underneath there. Taking a flat edge, you can see these are flat. I'm officially measuring the scale length at 20.5 inches, so just a little under 4 inches shorter than your standard Les Paul, which in the scale length world is huge. But I'm also able to confirm there's no truss rod in this at all. And if you're not familiar with what a truss rod is, it's a big metal piece that you put underneath the fretboard And if your neck ever gets bowed due to string tension, it can help straighten it back out or correct overing. Usually you can adjust that like right up here or right down here at the base of the neck, depending on manufacturer. But I'm betting since you're only using the top 3 strings, they just viewed that as something that they didn't need in these. You have to remember, this neck is massively chunky as compared to most electric guitars. This would be twice as big as the regular 50s style neck out of the Gibson custom shop if it were to be scaled up, I have no doubt. So don't take my comments of, no truss rod, oh my goodness, this thing is trash. I think it's just, they don't need it in this due to how they've constructed it. But who knows, time will tell. I also noticed some mild glue seep out from where they installed the nut. You can see it made the fretboard shiny due to the runoff. And now our fun little headstock. This is another area where I just noticed straight out of the box, there's a lot of scratches on this, and mine came pre-dinged along the edge. I'm kind of bummed about that. But I'm really surprised Gibson let them use their name on this. The LOOG Gibson by LOOG. Slightly redundant. I was totally expecting this to be like under the Epiphone branding, and in fact, I'm surprised Gibson even partnered with LOOG at all and just didn't make their own version under Epiphone. So in many ways, it's really cool that this even exists. They've got that golden logo with the black gloss top with our satin natural neck. Here's what the backside looks like. You just got your cheapy tuners. These are indeed made in China. However, if it makes you feel any better, this utilizes a Canadian maple neck. I see that a lot on these cheaper import guitars. They always use that as a selling feature. This has a lot of wood grain to it. However, don't get confused, it's not one piece. You do have a scarf joint right here. It's really long that they joined that obnoxiously large headstock onto. However, the headstock itself does appear to be crafted out of one piece before they scarfed it on. And our heel appears to be crafted out of the same piece of the neck as well. I didn't find any fun markings on the neck though. Before I put the neck back on, here's a closer look at our little dog tag neck plate. It just says Gibson X LOOG. Pretty cool. Then our backplate control cover. I found this hilarious. Talks about the Gibson LOOG partnership, ages 6+, all the good cancer warnings, etc. But I was thinking this was put over top of protective film and it'd be easy to remove. However, I don't think that's the case. That's actually pretty permanently on there. And then when I flipped it over, I went, oh, there it is. So I think what happened is after they had made these, or somewhere along that process, there was a new regulation that said, hey, you need to have this on your guitar somewhere. So they just had them flip over all the existing back plates to put that sticker on so it'd be visible. Because this is the way it's supposed to be installed. So if you hate the look of that, you just do that. That's the way it's supposed to be anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. While reinstalling everything, I noticed something else about the backplate. It was over-routed in 2 areas. You've got a little jut right there and another one over here. Fully assembled this time, it really doesn't get that much heavier. 3 pounds, 2.5 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds through a multi-$1,000 Marshall Blues Breaker. All right, so first impressions, that is really tinny sounding. So instantly I'm like, oh man, I wish I had a tone control, but I was pleasantly surprised. As you roll this down, It's like a tone and volume control all built in one, so it doesn't have to be full on 10. So if you get one of these kids and your ears are hurting, just tell them to roll that down to about an 8, little buddy. One thing I'm noticing, if you want proper structure for your hand, most people say you want your thumb on the back of the neck. This kind of helps fight against my natural tendencies anyways, because the neck just feels more comfortable to play like that, which helps your vibrato. Versus and being the top 3 strings, I'm now understanding it. These are the most problematic in learning guitar because they're not tuned exactly the same. Typically, you play your 5th fret of the string before it to get your next string above it. And that's how it's tuned in 5ths. But the G string is a 4th. So this kind of helps them learn that before they add the other 3 easier ones. And personally, I've always struggled with the top 3 strings when it comes to electric guitar. I freeze up, so it's kind of interesting just to focus on exactly those 3. Just having it ring out like that. That is the tone. That's actually quite nice. It's very ear bleeding at 10. But a little bit more woody at 8. I wouldn't really say it distorts well, but I wasn't expecting it to. If you really crank up the distortion, it's definitely microphonic. Here it is with that gain all the way up, but this is, I would say, at about 1.5. Don't forget about messing around with alternate tunings. Now it's like the bottom 3 strings. So there we go. What are my final thoughts on this? If you're just a guitar player looking for something kind of quirky to mess around with, I think this is a decent option if you need something from the parent company. Because as of right now, we don't have mini tenor size Les Pauls outside of really expensive vintage pieces. Maybe one day they will experiment with something like that. So in that case, yeah, I could suggest this is a fun little novelty thing in that, because it really does open up your mind in a different way. But if you can find a tenor Telecaster, somebody who's already well experienced with guitar and just wants to, challenge themselves a little bit to think differently, I think a tenor is going to be better suited towards you. But as far as a kid getting started on this, I've got to say, this review has changed my opinion of the LOOG guitars a little bit. I just always thought they were kind of weird novelties. Like, why would you only want the top 3 strings? Outside of their hands being small, I can totally see the appeal now. It's quite fun. It gets them started on an electric guitar, or acoustic for that matter. Man, I just started to think, are they going to do like little hummingbirds and doves next? That would be fun. So if you were on the fence, thought you'd give it to the grandkids to inspire them to maybe play, at that point, yes. However, if you already have someone who's like 10 years old, just get them a nice Epiphone or something with the full 6 strings. I think they can take it. This is just a great intermediate step if that's where your young musician finds themselves. The only other thing I find really strange here is, I get it, you're mainly teaching the first 12 frets so they understand that it then just duplicates past here, but why did they stop the fret markers? We need at least 2 more here. That would have made it so much better for me as a playing experience, because you don't even have that on the side of the neck. Now, thankfully, you can just take a white marker and add that yourself, or put one of those little stickers on it. But I feel like that's a real missed opportunity on these. So is it the best thing you can buy for 225 bucks? No, but it is a lot of fun. So I hope this video helps you make an informed decision whether one of these is right for you or not. All right, troglodytes, we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.